So I'll call the meeting to order. Shelley, are you doing roll call or just checking off everyone that you can see?
Can you unmute? Hi, Chair May.
Yes,
I will do roll call.
you're breaking up. Your sound is breaking up.
Can you hear us, Leah? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. The sound from the room is kind of breaking up from time to time. So just
Okay, we still have IT in the room, so if that continues, let us know and we'll get Ian to look at it. But
Okay.
Shelley's gonna start the roll call.
okay.
Director Jadden. I'm sorry.
Greetings from not Gary Owens from beautiful downtown, not Burbank.
Thank you. Director Kearney.
I am here.
Director Vandenberg.
Present.
Director Watson.
Present. Good afternoon.
Hello. Director Graham.
Present.
Director Newell.
Present.
Director Cunningham.
Might be on the phone now.
Director Papa.
Yeah, good afternoon and present.
Director Dayton.
Present, thank you.
Director Hanegraaff.
I'm here, thanks.
And alternate Director Peterson.
Present.
Chair May.
Yes, I am present.
And Director Hewitt.
Good afternoon, I am present.
Thank you.
And that is everyone.
Get Vandenberg. Yes.
So thanks to staff and to everyone on the committee for your forbearance of me chairing the meeting remotely. I also have village meetings every single day this week, and it just was not possible for me to drive back and forth to Nelson sometimes twice in a day. It's a crazy schedule this week.
Hi, Chair. Sorry to interrupt. I see somebody has joined us with a phone number with 16 at the end. Can you please identify yourself? Director Cunningham?
Who?
The number that ends in 16, can you identify yourself?
I don't know if I'm driving. I don't know if you can hear me. This is Deb Randall.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Deb. We just wanted to know who that was. Thank you.
Deb, are you able to
Okay.
mute? Sorry, Chairman.
Okay. Okay, so the meeting is open. I called it to order at 1:01 p.m. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And I would call for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Jackman, so
moved.
moved.
Okay, Jackman, and seconded by Chair Watson. Thank you. Any discussion around that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? or rather I should call for opposition. And I'm not hearing any opposition, so that is carried. We have received the February 13th minutes. And so we go on to staff reports. Item 6.1, the information update on sustainability service projects and areas of activity. So, Paris, I believe you will go through that with us.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, on page 2, you'll see a summary of the updates from February to this month of April and the activity that has occurred. I'll go through them line by line, and if there's any questions, the chair allows. So the Central Kootenay Food Policy Council, the new executive director, Damon Chouinard, has supported the last revision of the climate actions and also I am providing support for the presentation to the board that is coming in May. So there will be a presentation from the Food Policy Council to the board in May. The Watershed Governance Initiative, there's an update that's provided as part of the agenda. Slocan Lake and River Partnership, we continue to work on the terms of reference, and the latest update is that we have been working on combining the role of stewardship groups and the role of the governance entities, and we've decided as a committee to separate those two groups, and so there will be a working group and there will be a formal partnership entity similar to the Kootenay Lake Partnership, and the terms of reference are being finalized and should be, well, we'll see where they get to. Rural grid resilience, CSLAC supported the pilot investigation that's happening up in the Lardo Valley, and the final report is expected beginning of June, and so I'll be able to provide a report to the committee at that time, at the June CSLAC meeting. Regional active transportation strategy, I brought this up at the February meeting, and there was a request for the background report that supported this scope development and investigation. And so that was circulated yesterday to the committee, and there will be a formal report providing an update to the committee and some suggestions on how to proceed with in June. And then admin, the usual in terms of supporting, responding to questions from the public, and then also providing reports to the committee. And then in terms of general admin, the climate action strategy, it's currently on the board agenda for discussion at Thursday's meeting. And then regional invasive species strategy, there was a report brought to the board in April with a request for a decision, and that's been deferred to May. And the working group met again recently on March 4th. And those are my updates.
Are there any questions? I see Director Jackman's hand up.
Yep, thank you. Through the chair to Paris. On the item you have on active transportation, I didn't note Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure sort of being one of the stakeholders. So I'm hoping when you give the report in a month, will we have some feedback? Because Modi was asked about, say, speed limit changes in the periphery around Preston to encourage cyclists and the like. So will you have contact with Modi and give us some update on what they are willing to work with us on for your report in the next month?
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. Yes, thank you, Director Jackman. It's a great question. We are attempting to build a relationship with Modi. To date, we have not had any formal response. For this gathering that's happening on May 13th, they will be invited to present and provide an update on the various work that's underway around the regional district that they've been asked to respond to. But yeah, at this stage, we haven't had any, we're not in discussion with them, so I can't say.
Yeah, and please bear in mind, Director Jackman, that was circulated to directors only, and it is there for information. It's not for discussion in any form at this meeting. Thank you. Director Watson.
Thank you. We're not to discuss it, but if there's information of an event on May 13th, can we get that circulated to us as well? Unless it was in the report that was emailed. My question was actually just regarding, you have the grid resilience in this report, which yes, we've provided funding, but I just wanted a bit of clarification around staff involvement. First of all, the 0% isn't reflective of the project not in action. It's very much in action. I believe they've been submitting. They've got the grid assessments happening, the subsidies are happening, it's all happening. So I just wanted to clarify the 0% in the staff report is not reflective of the program not in action, because it's very much in action. So I assume that 0% is more so related to staff involvement time. And that is my main question. Is just my understanding was we were providing a $6,000 grant to offset what CBT would not fund or to support the program. But I didn't understand staff to be involved directly, or that you would be required to write a report, Paris. So I'm just clarifying that, because I don't want to have you do extra work when the people who are running the program are being employed to do that report writing and whatnot. So just some clarification on staff involvement, expectations, and what the 0% is reflecting.
Paris?
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. Yes, this update is strictly according to how my time has been spent in the month, so February to April. It's not a project update per se. So it's not a reflection of the status of the project, it's a reflection of the status of my time and how it's been distributed. Yes, so with the grid resilience, my role in that project is contract oversight. And so the report that will be coming to the committee is our standard reporting on us as the committee as being a funder of that project. And so the report will be what happened, what were the successes, the final report, as we do with all our projects, a final report that comes to the committee for evaluation.
Supplemental, Director Watson?
Yeah, thank you. And that's kind of what I assumed. Good to clarify. Assumptions don't always work well. The other point, which I think we can just discuss face to face, is it might be good for the grid resilience folks to present to CSLAC next fall or something about how the program went. What was it? How did it work? Because it is a pilot that other areas in the province are interested for those areas that deal with power instability. So it might be an interesting one for CSLAC in the future to get a full report from.
That sounds like an excellent suggestion. I would be very interested to hear what their experience has been. Any other discussion on the staff reports? Director Jackman, do you have another question or comment on the staff reports?
Nope. All I wanted to know is Modi was in the loop for that future report.
Okay.
So that's good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that was for information only. So we go on to item 7, old business. For information, the Watershed Governance Initiative update. Paris?
Thank you, through the chair. Similar to the information item that was received, we have some items that, the information item that was received by email on Monday, we have some items that precede this committee's composition and are also long-standing active items or slow-moving items. And the watershed governance is a similar item. So there was direction from this committee to the board that was approved in 2022, in February of 2022, to work with the province on developing a watershed sustainability plan and working in partnership with Yakanuki in the Creston Valley. We did provide an update to this committee in last year, prior to both Chair Watson, Director Watson and Director Jackman and staff going to meet with Yakanuki, Nusukan and Council to discuss our proposal to work with them. Since then, it has been quiet, and it was recently we were approached by Yakanuki staff to initiate the next steps of this interest on our behalf to work with them and to work more broadly in the whole of the valley on creating a water sustainability plan. And so we wanted to update the committee and bring forward some information. And so this report is an information update on the Watershed Governance Initiative and provides an update not only on proceeding with the watershed sustainability plan and or objectives in the Creston Valley, but also our work in terms of GIS and story mapping, and also in the work that's happening around the service case analysis.
Any questions from directors?
I'm in chat.
Director Watson? Okay, I was just going to say Director Watson, I see your name. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't sure if you were using chat, so sorry about that. Couple questions, and I apologize because there is a lot of information and I'm doing my best to keep up with it all. I think I've read the CAP plan about 5 times now and I still am trying to figure it out. But no discount to staff, you provide us a lot of details. So my questions on this one are, I'm actually confused over what happened to the 25,000 for the cumulative study. Did it happen or did that move forward into the 2024 budget? I noted that there was about 21,000 carried forward from 2023. So is that the cumulative study 25,000? That's my first question, and then I have a few others.
So
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Sorry,
Yes.
Director May, or Chair May. Yes, no, we haven't spent any of the 25,000. So there was some initial work that did happen with Duck Creek and Wendell Irrigation District. There was some GIS work that happened, and that was paid through the 45,000 that was approved through LGCAP funding. And so the 25,000 remains, and it was carried over into this budget. Where we paused on our activity was that it was intended as a story mapping effort around building out that cumulative impact study. And we understood that Yakinuki was doing very similar work, and so we wanted to ensure that it was complementary. And they asked us, similarly as they did in June, to wait for them to do the work first, and that they would be in touch with us. So we have done some GIS mapping for the Wendell Irrigation District, which we've shared with them, a map but that was part of the whole, though there was a larger project piece associated with that, but we haven't spent any of the 25,000 yet.
Thank you. One supplemental, Chair.
correct, you can go ahead.
Thank you. So you answered my question about what we did do, because I was just wanting a bit more detail on the report indicated community meetings. So I was just wanting to elaborate, which I think is just more the engagement with Yakinuki from what you've just said and some mapping. So I think you answered that one. So my final question is just, we already have a motion directing us to be able to do this. Yakinuki has said, yes, we want to do this. But I need a bit more clarification over Yakinuki's interest that we take the lead, and can we anticipate a letter from them articulating that? Because I think that's a really important distinction to ensure we have a letter with their support and indicating they're fine with us taking the lead. Is that something that's coming, or is there further to elaborate on that?
Thank you, through the chair. The next step is to draft a letter between us and Yakinuki that would go to the province. And so in that place, we would begin. At this stage, it's still very tentative. And the first step is to just express a level of interest to the province, to say, essentially wave a flag and say, hey, we're interested in doing this work. So it's unclear. I would say it's unclear at this stage how formal we become in our roles and responsibilities. Following an expression of interest to the province, my understanding is that we would then work with Yakinuki to develop the terms of our relationship and clarify the roles and responsibilities. And so that's where we would work to articulate all that.
Okay. Anyone else? I don't see, okay, I have Director Jackman in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Two thoughts. Of course, we made application for an agricultural water use study, so that work, whatever happens with it when we get on to discussions around that, would have to be coordinated as part of this. The other one is Yakinuki has both of the hydrological studies of the impact of concurrent logging above the Duck Creek watershed. So through the chair to Paris, did we ever receive the second report? That would be the Canfor one or the Wynwood Mill one. Or is that still something that we have to go through other channels to get the right to see what that hydrological study said? Do we have that yet?
Thank you through the chair. No, we do not.
So whatever, if I can share, that's
Yes.
information we should see sooner rather than later, whatever path we have to follow. It'd be nice if we're corresponding with administration, with Yakanuki, if staff could get clarity. Are they not showing us a report because Canfor asked them not to show us it and we have to go directly to Canfor? Or is it just as simple, ticking the boxes, making sure everyone's happy so we can see what that report said? So that could maybe be part of the communication with Yakanuki in the next week or two.
Thank you through the chair. What I recall of our meeting when we met with them last year was that we did ask that question again, and I believe Yakanuki staff were clear that time. We haven't asked again, so we can, but that they weren't going to share it with us. The Canfor had asked them not to share it with us.
Yeah, through the chair, that was the direction that was given to them when they received the report. However, I think it's an interesting piece of information that we need to consider in the cumulative impact study whenever that should happen.
And yes, noted, we can ask again.
Okay. So did that satisfy your question, Director Jackman?
Yeah, what I'm thinking, and I was just at Kofi, but I didn't see any Canfor reps. It was a lot of bodies. Maybe I would write to Michelle Ward, who's a communications VP, and staff, if that's at all appropriate, just say, can you guys talk to each other? Or whatever means, or maybe it has to go through the chair, but we need to maybe communicate to Canfor directly, not at the local level, but at their corporate level, that this is information we'll be needing, and one way or the other we'll get it.
Okay. Does staff have a response to that?
Thank you through the chair. My suggestion would be at this time to wait. I feel like we're building relationship at this point, and I think we can, as we meet with them to talk about terms, perhaps there might be another way that that information can be shared.
Yeah, Paris just pointed to me. Sorry, Chair, if I may elaborate on that.
Certainly, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll try to work with Yakanuki to access that information. And I think what Paris is saying that it'll take time to get that, agreement from them. We may even want to go talk to Canfor directly, as Director Jackman indicated. So we'll make every effort to get those reports. Ultimately, really, they're intended to inform that water sustainability plan ultimately, but also a cumulative impact study for the Duck Creek watershed. So it's key information.
Okay. Okay, I have Director Vandenberg and then Director Watson. So Director Vandenberg, go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair, further on to this conversation, Yakanuki has expressed an interest to proceed. It sounds like my question would be is, what is an appropriate timeline that's reasonable? This has been an ongoing thing since 2021, if I read it correctly. Do you anticipate what a timeline might look like in terms of this agreement, for example?
Staff?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Yes, great question. We know that once, so in terms of water sustainability plans and water objectives, there's two precedents currently in the province. So there's not a lot to build upon in terms of understanding of how long it takes. What we get from direction or from information from the province is that typically water objectives can take about 3 years. Water sustainability plans are 2 to 3 years, and water sustainability plans can take 3 to 5 years. In addition to the significant effort of the communication and clarifying and working in partnership to articulate the various interests, we also there's a significant period of time through legislation for it actually to be adopted into legislation at the provincial level. And that all assumes that there's capacity to do this work. So as part of the development of the terms, we'll also be updating our project plans for the watershed governance initiative to understand how this could happen at a staff level and what staff are needed. And similarly, Yakanuki is also proceeding as they're able to from a staff level as well. So we're proceeding as we are able to.
Supplemental, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So it sounds like then the terms that are to be discussed need to be approved by the province. Is that what I'm hearing? I would think that this would be an agreement, a localized agreement between RDCK and Yakanuki. I'm unclear as to the role of the province on this. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so the terms would be something that we would work on with the other stakeholders / partners that we're working with. However, I think Paris is referring to when an order in council is required for the water sustainability plan for Crescent. So once a plan and even the objectives will require an order in council approval. So that's where it goes to the ministry for that approval process.
Great.
Once they're established.
Thank you for that clarity. Supplemental back to my original question, if I may.
Certainly, go ahead.
The anticipated timeline for getting sat down and developing a set of terms, would you expect that to happen within the next 2 quarters?
So through the chair, yes, we'll make every effort to engage and start that process over the next 2 quarters.
Thank you.
If I
Paris,
may, I
go
thank
ahead.
you very much. There's a Yakanuki is aware of they're quite motivated to proceed. They've recently done some modeling work on the watershed. We also know that we're experiencing a drought, and we know that farmers are also experiencing this concern as well. So we know that there's motivation at this time to proceed. So it's in our court to respond with a letter, and we've been waiting to share this report with you to get back to Yakanuki. So that's our next steps.
Okay, Director Watson.
Thank you. This is difficult. So we had a meeting that the province does provide weekly to bi-weekly within the emergency season update calls. And so my open chair report, which is on the agenda, identifies a few things in there. And one of them is that if there's known drought areas, to go ahead and contact Walrus, the Ministry of Water, Land, Stewardship, whatnot. I think we're already in that queue with the work we're doing with Yakanuki, but it was a question I wanted to raise that this might not be the place, but I think there's a couple of areas that if they're wanting to anticipate, or not wanting to anticipate, but wanting to plan in advance known droughts that don't currently have plans in place to address, I believe the RD has enough information to identify at least the Crescent Valley and Lardo Valley as 2 areas that have seen wells dried up in agricultural areas. And it was specific to agriculture areas that they wanted a heads up on. So I think Dan is sitting at the table. I'm not sure. I think I can see him there. Hi, Dan. I see you. So slightly off topic, Chair, but I just wanted to flag that I think while this process is in place, I don't think that prevents us from reaching out to the province to say, we know the Crescent Valley and we know the Lardo Valley and possibly Slocan, I'm not sure, both have drought within agricultural zones. And what supports are there to support those farmers moving into the 2024 season? So just a flag, I think Dan knows this information as well, but I thought it was an opportune time to mention it because yes, a water sustainability plan will take some time, Director Vandenberg, and some of those pieces won't be enacted right away, but the province is well aware that they're looking at actions ASAP while also planning long-term. So this ASAP one is one that I think we should flag and perhaps ask staff to investigate what options there are for this season's potential droughts. Sorry, that was long-winded.
A good point, Director Watson. I appreciate that. Thank you, Director Vandenberg, for bringing this whole topic forward. And Director Watson, I don't mind going off topic a little bit in this case. Does staff have any response to Director Watson's comments?
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, that is part of our motivation as well. It's anticipating an ongoing dry year and wanting to support farmers. So yeah, thank you very much. We are working also well with the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that they are well prepared to support farmers as well. And yeah, it's a plan to.
I'm going to chime in here with a comment and a question that water issues in general, with all of their different specificities, are becoming more and more crucial and critical to communities. So as we are already keeping an eye on a number of pieces of this, I think we should probably keep in mind when the time comes to request talks with ministries at UPCM that this might be a topic that we could talk to someone in the appropriate ministries about. Was there anybody else that wanted to question or comment on this report?
Yes, Chair, it was Sangeeta here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to something that Director Jackman said about the report that's being prepared for the Creston Valley on agricultural availability of water. That is going to be critical to maybe advancing some of your advocacy work going forward. But for the purpose of this exercise, it will be definitely information that will be relevant, but not necessarily something that can be actioned right away as part of the watershed governance project.
Okay. Was there any comment or question regarding the item C on this report? Preparing a natural asset management plan for Weimer Watershed Quartz Creek. Paris, do you have any more to offer on that topic?
Thank you, through the chair. The next step is to work with Director Cunningham to prepare an application to Community Works. This will be brought back to CSLAC for approval. And yes, we're wanting to proceed on. We're prepared to proceed on that.
Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else in this report that would require comment. The service case review of drinking water and watershed protection service. So that was 2023. The service case analysis is completed and being reviewed by staff. And I imagine that is something that will come around again and again as our water situation becomes more and more tenuous. Okay, so if there's no more comment or question on item 7.1.
Chair, Director Cunningham had a question, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I see his hand there. Sorry, go ahead, Director Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the article about the Weimer watershed, yeah, we're ready to proceed anytime. And also the Weimer Watershed Committee has a great deal of information. And we, as you probably know, we've been working together on the question of the logging of the watershed and the difficulties with that and how that would affect the water, which is marginal at best. Just a comment there, thank you. And that's to say, yes, we're ready to go anytime.
Okay. So staff has heard that, and the work will proceed as it can. Thank you, Director Cunningham. So is that it for 7.1? Paris, did you want to respond to Director Cunningham or just accept that as at face value?
Thank you through the chair. I'll just say thumbs up. That's great. I'll be in touch.
Okay. And that was for information, so it doesn't require any further action. Item 8, new business for information, CSLAC ideas on restructuring the year. And staff will present on this.
Thank you, Chair. So this was in response to our February meeting and some of the challenges that you experienced as members of CSLAC with funding allocations for 3 projects that came through. And at the February meeting, we had a discussion, or you had a discussion on how we could revise the process to simplify it and better align it with the RDCK budgeting timeline. So staff met and came up with a proposal that is what you see ahead of you. So the challenge was that applications for funding were coming in at a time prior to RDCK budget being approved, which meant CSLAC didn't necessarily, or directors of the board didn't necessarily know how much money they wanted to allocate to CSLAC, and whether or not within the CSLAC budget you wanted to allocate $25,000 to projects that were specific to move forward CSLAC initiatives. And so in order to simplify that process, what we are proposing is, so to simplify the decision-making process, is in December, staff is going to present a summative of what has been accomplished in the year, and also say, look forward into the following year and say, here's how much staff time we have, here's how much funding we have left for the following year. Going into the first quarter of, I'm going to use years just for examples here. So going into the first quarter of 2025, the $25,000 budget line that's typically assigned to projects would be part of the CSLAC budget. It would be part of the regular budget approval process that the RDCK does. So at that point, the RDCK would approve its budget, approve CSLAC's budget, and CSLAC would know that it has $25,000 to allocate to potential projects for 2025. Once that's done, if the $25,000 is approved to go towards projects, then application intake would open for project proposals to be received from April to May. And then in June, those proposals would be evaluated and CSLAC would make a decision on how to allocate that $25,000, if at all. If it doesn't get allocated, that budget can be used in a different way. If it does get allocated to different projects, that's great. And then the project could continue through, and the same process happens from year to year. So in December 2025, you get a summary again of what work has been done, what staff time is available, and what funding is available for the following year, and repeat from year to year. Anything more to add?
Okay. I would ask if there are questions or comments on this item. Director Graham.
Thank you. So through the chair to staff, and forgive me again for being a new director here, but how does CSLAC solicit the proposals? Is it an advertisement in the newspaper, and is it open to specific groups? I'm just wondering how this grant piece works.
Thank you. Through the chair?
Go ahead, Paris. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, great question. So the intent is, or maybe not the intent, our practice has been really to work with the committee members, to work with partners in their community, or to work with ideas that they see as emerging from the community, to solicit ideas, to bring forward concerns that they're having. It's been largely through the committee members that we have solicited project ideas. On occasion, we have worked with our project partners, so groups that we have worked with in different capacities, like Living Lakes, like Friends of Kootenay Lake, to notify them that if they're exploring something that within the criteria of CSLAC that's novel, that supports sustainability for the regional district, then there is a funding pool available. We do make it available on our website. We've been told that it's not very, it's very well hidden and it's not very visible. But that would be, it would be a decision at from the committee whether or not there was interest to promote it more broadly than what we've been doing.
Director Graham, do you have a supplemental?
Yeah, just a supplemental comment would be that we should be improving the transparency of this grant availability, because I'm a director and I wasn't sure where it was coming from. So I would say the public isn't very aware of this. So I hope that is something that the committee would see as something we could do.
I'll step in here and give some more clarification. This is not a granting program in the same way that the Ready grants are a granting program. So I would say virtually all of the items that we have worked on, all of the projects we have worked on, have been brought by a director who is perhaps partnering with a group from their community that has a particular concern, or it has been identified by staff, and staff has connections within particular industry groups that might be doing a pilot, might be interested in doing a pilot study for us or with us. And these are very specifically around sustainability issues. So we have money to grant to projects, but it's not a granting program per se. And because not all of the board, the RDCK board, are members of this committee, that's another reason that we have done it this way, where it's a bit more internally driven rather than being quite wide open to the public. And so I will go back to the list. I saw Director Watson's hand up, and then Director Vandenberg's. So Director Watson first.
Vandenberg was first, actually.
Oh, okay. Director Vandenberg then.
Thank you, Director Watson. Not that it really matters. I'm good that way. My question is around when I look at the PowerPoint presentation, in particular, is talking about CSLAC's roles. And I kind of wonder about where we fit in our intent and desires, particularly around housing and energy, for example. So that prompted me to go back to the terms of reference, and these items are not even reflected in the terms of reference, which was done in 2019 and revised in 2020. So my question is, at some point in time, can we get a commitment to look at the terms of reference for the potential of updating the role and purpose of CSLAC? Because currently, as I read the terms of reference, it does not reflect the work and activities that seem to be before us. That is my question.
That's a very good point, Director Vandenberg. Staff, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, we can always revisit the terms. The last time they were done was in revised was in 2020. And housing is one of a holdover from when it was initially, the scope of this committee was initially developed. It is now largely managed by planning. Energy is still a very active focus of this committee, both with the current projects, with the grid resilience project up in the Lardo Valley, and our recent work over on the East Shore. And it's also a very emergent issue that has a lot of potential for exploration. But yes, always available to revise the terms.
And if I can build on that, Chair, part of the process that
Yes.
thank you, through the chair, part of the process that I skipped over was during that budgeting process in the first quarter of the year, we'd also, part of that would be doing some visioning as CSLAC members to see what are those directions that you want to be taking on either for that particular year or years to come. And if I could propose, that might be an interesting time to also review terms of reference for this particular committee.
So supplemental, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So then I am hearing that it'll be something that will automatically come back to us in that time that Dan, you're suggesting, or is it something that I ought to be noting and bringing forward? Because I think the opportunity for modernizing the terms of reference to reflect that work and activity that this group is doing needs to happen.
Thank you. Through the chair, we are open to you making a decision as a committee to do it at a different time. Otherwise, a natural place to do it would be during that visioning in that first quarter next year. And it would come back to you from us.
Director Vandenberg, I think it's, that's a really good point that you've brought forward. I appreciate from staff this approach to how to structure the work that we do in terms of what we do in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. I think that leaving the terms of reference and that visioning for February means that it won't get implemented until the following year. There's some overlap between what needs to be done and what can be done at various points. Yes, in December, an annual report is great, and I think that's where we can set the stage for the visioning and the review of the terms of reference. Whereas if we leave that for February, then we're going to be playing catch up throughout the year, if you understand what I mean. Director Vandenberg, yes, if you wanted to bring that forward at any time during, during this term, we'd be happy to entertain that.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, I do believe that I will. I think that waiting, I'm not disagreeing that what Dan's proposed in the timeline, it makes a lot of sense. It's good to have that set out so that we understand it. Waiting a year though for a 4-year-old terms of reference that's not reflecting our activity kind of concerns me. So yes, I think that I would like to bring something forward. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll look forward to receiving further communication from you on this. And Director Watson.
Thanks. I think that I appreciate staff looking at this because I think we have consistently almost every year ended up in this well, what's the bottom line? What are taxes going to be? Do we fund them? So I think that removes that conversation and just makes it about numbers, and then applications can come in afterwards. So I appreciate that. I think also being cognizant, the closer we are to final budget, the more we understand where we do have discretion and flexibility and where we may not. So the more we can know our budgets, I think CSLAC meets in February generally. So hopefully at the February meeting, we're doing that fine line of, are we going to provide grants this year or are we not? Which should be the question, not are we funding this group or that group, just what's the number, and then we can go from there. So ideally that full budget conversation can happen in February because at that time we generally have a pretty good idea of what our taxes are going to be. My further question that I wanted to raise in this kind of revisioning is curious if we think this committee needs to meet as much as we do. Mostly we're receiving updates, which I definitely was the person on the email saying, don't send updates over email, please include them in agendas, because I do feel public is paying attention and it's great for them to get updates as well in terms of reports. But possibly we don't need to be doing this as much because we're receiving more for information updates than we are making decisions. And if we go to this new kind of schedule, we know when our big decisions are going to be. And we can maybe just have one meeting for updates or provide updates through the board, which if they're only updates and we're not making a decision is a good way for the full board to know what this committee is doing. My last comment will be, is I continue to be severely concerned that everything we do in this committee does not limit this geography. Sorry, it's not limited to the geography of the participants in the service.
Yeah.
And I understand why people want to leave because we're doing things that are helpful for the whole region, but not everybody's participating. And so for me, that's still a flag. How do we, from a governance perspective, include all areas that are benefiting from this work while only having certain ones actually pay for the staff time, pay for the projects and whatnot? So I think those two flags, if we can think about those moving forward, I support this shift in how we might do our budgeting cycle. But let's also include those other ones alongside what Director Vandenberg raised, which was our actual guidance on what we fund, updating that. So that may have been a bit of a ramble, but hopefully that's clear. And if not, I can provide clarification.
I think it was pretty clear, Director Watson, and I really appreciate you bringing up that point yet again of how do we walk that line between what we do benefiting our members and what we do benefits the entirety of the board, and in fact, in some cases, benefits communities that are not members of this committee more than it does the members. And that's been, ever for 6-7 years, that's been the question and the quandary. I think a lot of the work that we do as a committee, as a service, likely would not get done without us as an oversight and a motivation board. But where to place it, how to place it, how much effort and energy and focus does it require? It's a bigger conversation, and maybe that's a conversation that we can be having in June, if we don't have a heavier agenda at that time. I think it's time for that discussion again. But I would like for us to have that discussion and then open it up to the rest of the board as well. If that makes any sense, because that was a bit of a ramble. Staff, comments from staff?
I feel that, through the chair, the approach we want to take has always been to be inclusive of the region. We do have projects that are pilots that are initiated for specific areas that is represented on this committee. But I don't disagree with you, and I think the approach of revisiting the terms of reference, looking at our vision for the committee going forward to be happening sooner than later or in June we talked about it starting in December. I think that would be a great way to set the stage. And that's all I want to say. We've bashed around this topic about getting more people on the committee. Really, that, as Director Watson said, it's a governance thing, and we leave it to you to give us direction on that. We definitely would like others to be part of the great work that you do and continue to support that.
I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation, but going back to this annual calendar that Dan has brought forward, I think it's a good opportunity for us to try formalizing our annual cycle a bit better. So yeah, any more comments on this? If not, we'll just
Chair, I do have a,
so Director Davidoff, go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you, Chair.
You had Hewitt in the speakers list as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I'll defer to Director Hewitt if she hasn't spoken.
Yeah, with my apologies, Director Hewitt, go ahead, and then we'll get to Director Davidoff.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And if the chair doesn't rule it out of order, I want to pick up on what Director Vandenberg had requested, which was a review of the terms of reference. And my thought is, why do we have to have him requested at another time? Can we not just put a referral to a subsequent meeting in the minutes today and say, refer it to the June meeting? And if it is deemed that it's got a full agenda, we don't have time for the review at that time, we move it to another meeting. But then it's already on our list as something that we want to have done. And then it doesn't mean that Director Vandenberg has to communicate with staff when he's got everybody right here that can do it at this very moment. I would support, I would second a motion if he wishes to make that.
Okay, Director Vandenberg, the ball is in your court.
Thank you through the
So
chair.
Chair, point of order, I'd like to speak on a point of order before we proceed with any motion on this.
And what is the point of order?
Point of order is, I have a question to the CAO as to what we're talking about here. Is a review of the terms of reference, or are we talking about a service review? So what is it that we're actually talking about? And I guess the question I have for the CAO, what is this discussion all about? Because it's kind of smacks of a service review, but it's talking about a terms of reference. So could the CEO please explain how we should proceed procedurally from this point on?
Through the chair, it sounds like you're talking about a review of the terms of reference of the committee. A service review can only be initiated by one participant, and it has to be approved by the ministry through a formal letter. So that is very, very different from what you're talking about here.
Thank you, Chair. That helps me a lot.
Excuse me, Stuart, could you say that again, please, a bit slower, because you were breaking up?
A service review can only be initiated by one participant, and it needs to be through a formal letter that's then approved by the ministry. That's a very, very different process than what you're talking about here. I think you're talking about the purpose of the committee from the participant standpoint, and just doing a little bit of a gut check to see if it's sitting where you all want it to sit.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so I guess we go back to that the ball is in Director Vandenberg's court.
Great, thank you, and thank you for that distinction between service review and the terms of reference. So my motion would simply be to have staff provide for us a discussion at the next meeting, really, around terms of service for the opportunity of modernizing it to our current time.
And do we have a second?
Director Hewitt will second.
Okay. I'll call for discussion of that motion.
If I may, through the chair, just to reiterate,
Yes.
After reviewing the terms of reference, it is limited, and I think the intent of it is to be much greater. Obviously, that's what the perception of staff is. So I think it's prudent that we all, because it was done a number of years ago, we all have an opportunity to ensure that the terms of reference reflect the work of this committee.
Thank you, Director Vandenberg. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will call the question. I'm just going to ask for opposition to show your hands. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried, and so that will go to staff as a direction. And thank you very much, and thank you, Director Vandenberg, for that. It's a really good point, and this is a good time to review what it is that we are gathered periodically to do.
Thanks to Director Hewitt.
Director Davidoff, your turn now to bring your point forward.
No, I made my point, Chair, it was a
Oh,
point of
okay.
order, just a clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So, I guess that covers ideas on restructuring the year. And we will move to item 8.2 for discussion, to reschedule the June 2024 meeting. This was a request that I and Director Hewitt brought forward. There are plans that have not been completely formalized yet for a post convention study tour. And we, Director Hewitt and I both were interested in participating in that. It is a tour regarding the oil sands and petrochemical resource extraction in northern Alberta. But we haven't heard anything more about it. However, if it did come to fruition, we were able to participate in it, we would not be back here in time for the next CSLAC meeting. I have not heard any more about that potential tour, and I would ask Director Hewitt, has she heard anything more about it?
No, Director Main, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. So Director Watson pointed out that on June 18th in the afternoon, which is when we were considering rescheduling to, there is a transit meeting, although I don't see it in the calendar. But I will take it as accurate that there would be a transit meeting that afternoon, and would ask if members of this committee would be willing to meet in the morning on June 18th for the CSLAC meeting instead of where it was originally scheduled on the 11th. Love it, hate it? Anybody?
You've got
There's a
three.
number of us in chat.
What's the date? The 11th.
Jackman, Hewitt, Vandenberg.
11th.
Okay, thank you. Jackman.
Sure, thanks. Chair is going to point out the same thing as Chair Watson that I have in my calendar, West Transit, which is 17 out of the 20 of us. Well, not quite, because not everybody's in CSLAC. I'd be happy to meet that morning. I try to be in person whenever feasible, so I just do both. If you want to do CSLAC the morning of, then I'll stay for West Transit later. Works for me.
Okay. Hewitt. Director.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I am fine with the morning, but I was also going to point out it would affect more than just the two of us, because anybody who was going to stay through until the end of Sunday would not be back until late on the Monday. So it could affect anybody who is going to.
That's true. Good point. Thank you. Director Vandenberg.
Thank you, and to Director Hewitt to point that out. That's important in my thought process. I don't know. That Calgary to Fort Mac that's 2 days, and I guess I am okay with the moving of the date. But I was going to point out that we're fortunate to have two people representing us, and that this might be a time where one stays at home and does the work and the other reports back. But that's not the case any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Watson.
That's crazy.
Works for me. As most of you know, I don't attend FCM. So I'm fine with either date, but the 18th of the morning works well. And I just wanted to verify, because Director Hewitt is the chair of the Transit Committee. So I want to make sure it's in your calendar, because I had it in mine. So thumbs up, you got it. Okay, good. Yep, morning of the 18th works fine for me. Have fun at FCM.
Okay, Director Popoff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My questions have been answered.
Okay, and as you will notice, Director Hewitt put in the chat, the tour of Northern Alberta resource extraction includes a flight there and back. So it would just be a 1 day. Okay, so it sounds as if I'm not hearing objection to moving it to the morning of the 18th of June. Is staff okay with that?
Yes, through the chair, we're good.
Okay, so if that requires a motion, I would put that on the floor that we reschedule the June 2024 meeting to the morning of June 18th. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for those opposed. Not seeing any, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Chair Maiden?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but
No
I just
worries.
wanted to point out for anybody who's going to FCM, if this does actually happen, it is open to everyone, not just to board members. So any participant in FCM who's going to be at the conference would be able to attend that, is my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll keep you posted if and as we hear anything more about it. So that brings us to public time. Do we have anyone still on the line who is not part of the committee who wants to speak?
Yeah, this is Deb Randall. I'm in transit. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Good. Okay. Thank you. I have a question. And so it relates to, I've been trying to get an answer for this question, and I've sort of got part of an answer, but my question relates to FCM and GMF funding for the RDCK and whether or not a climate action plan is required. Because the latest memo that went out, well, we'll start back at the February 15th board meeting where Director Popoff asked Paris and the question, and she said yes. And then the latest memo that went out on the climate action plan is phrased like option 1 and option 2 are required in order to get funding. And then option 3, which is no approval or no endorsement. If it's not endorsed, then there won't be funding. So my question is
that is a question for the board, since the board is the climate action plan item is a board item now, not a sustainability item.
I understand that, but as you're all directors, and
we can't answer a board question in a committee.
It's actually
it has to be asked of the entire board.
It's a Paris question. It isn't a board question. And
excuse me. The item that you're querying about is a board item, not a sustainability item. If you have a question for Paris, you should email it to Paris.
I've been trying to get
at this committee meeting, we cannot answer questions about items that are board items. That would be overstepping our bound as a committee. And since Paris is at this meeting as a staff member of this committee, she can't answer that at this meeting either. You have to ask it at board or through an email to Paris. I'm really sorry, but we are required to follow certain rules.
Oh, well,
so I hope you'll ask it at
on
board.
her work plan. It is on her work plan that was presented to this meeting.
It is a board item. I don't know how many times I will need to say it, but you need to ask it at board or in an email to Paris. Thank you.
Well, which I have
Any
done
other questions from the
last
public?
2 months.
Excuse me? Your time is up. Thank you. Any other members of the public with a question or a comment for this committee? Hearing none. I would call for a resolution to adjourn.
Yeah.
We'll move.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you. See you all tomorrow and Thursday.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye for now.
Wish I could have